Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm once again joined by my good friend Aram in Toronto 3 times in 1 week. Aram, welcome.
Hello. I don't know how you do these pods after losses. This is an interesting one. You know, like this was a massive East Coast swing. A lot of games, a lot of drama. So I was able to catch pretty much all of these games since they were in my time zone, but not the best trip. Not the best trip.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to you after the successful Raptors game, and since then they got drubbed by the Knicks, which I talked about. And tonight they got drubbed in a different way by the Nets. So just, we were texting back and forth. I was going on Twitter, reading jokes, cracking jokes, talking smack about kind of an absurd game. But, I'm going to give you a moment to have a minor catharsis if you need it about this game or the last couple of games.
I think, we're so used to a certain kind of sports narrative, or we're fans because we want a sports narrative, right? And when you lay out the context, the drama of like, okay, chips are down, they're going to be down all these guys, we have these young players, it's time for them to step up. And you imagine, some young guy stepping up at MSG and at least showing the crowd, giving the crowd a show. And then, okay, that didn't happen, but tonight's another night. They have another chance, and maybe, just maybe, seeing an old friend lights a fire under some of the Warriors, and you round off this trip with a resounding win and some hope for the future. But sports is usually not like that, and it wasn't like that tonight. But it's also one game. We're only about a third of the way into the season, so it could be worse. We could be the San Francisco Giants, who had a much worse day and much worse night, and shielded the Warriors, I think, and particularly James Wiseman, from a lot of Twitter hate. So thanks, Giants, for crapping the bed so badly with Carlos Correa, and running interference for our dear Warriors, who had a tough back-to-back, to be sure.
Yeah, I gotta say, I realized during this game, I'm pretty sure since KD's been on the Nets that the Warriors and the Nets have never played against each other when they've both been decent, like actually good. Like the first year, the Warriors were terrible. The second year,
last year there was an early season matchup that the Warriors won, I think.
Okay.
And the Warriors were really it was like super early in the season. They were really hyped. I don't think Kyrie was playing.
Yeah. And he didn't play in this one, of course, but even then, and correct me if I'm wrong, even then it felt like the Nets weren't really that good. And at least now they've racked off a few wins in a row, and Jacques Vaughn has them on a different path. So I guess that's what I'm saying.
And they do look pretty good, actually. They totally boat raced the Warriors, and they were hitting everything. Their defense was so. I was actually thinking wow, what would have happened if Udoka had ended up being the head coach for the Nets? I don't think that would have turned them around. That would have just created even more instability. And hey, good for Jacques Vaughn. A long time, he's been in the coaching realm for a long time, had a few cracks at some interim jobs, and but seems to have given them some stability. I don't know what their long-term contenders, prospects are, but they look pretty good.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I would have loved to have seen a game where they're both kind of good.
Yeah.
And maybe down the road. I remember a couple years ago, it was before Clay tore his Achilles, it was like, oh, Nets Warriors final. You know what I mean? Or even the idea, I think people were talking about it like when the Warriors had D'Angelo Russell. It was like, when Clay comes back in April, it'll be like a three-headed monster again. Yeah, it didn't happen.
No.
Okay, let's talk about James Wiseman, right? He had this game
Yeah.
after this
30
Knicks
points.
game.
30 points. Sorry, I mean, maybe you were gonna recap his box score, but I think he had 30 points, 12 of 14 shooting, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Wow. A block, a turnover, minus 12, but
a 3-pointer, 1 for 1.
A 3-pointer. So I don't know. It's definitely a bit of empty calories for sure, but it's also nice to see him play nearly 30 minutes. He played 28 minutes. He was out there. So that was nice to see. I was definitely, I think with about a minute and 20 seconds to go, he had 28 points, and Patty Mills was guarding him, but he was above the 3-point line. I was like, shoot it, get your 30. Let's go, just shoot it. And then he passed it, and the Nets ran out the clock, and then he posted somebody up and hit a kind of a BS turnaround jumper. But hey, good for him, like that's what I wanted, if nothing else.
Can you get a game ball in a 30-point loss?
Well, it's got to go to somebody. although not to bury your lead, Patrick Baldwin Jr. Probably might compete for that game ball a little bit. His first extended run, 5 for 8 from 3. I was telling you, I'm sick of seeing Ty Jerome shoot. I feel like he never passes to anybody. He's always looking for his shot, especially when he's playing with the kids. But Patrick Baldwin, I'm like, go be Kobe, go be Clay. Just shoot as much as you can. We haven't seen that much of him. This was the first extended run, and I thought he looked all right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they probably got some of their jitters out last night against the Knicks on the bigger stage, or the national stage, and it felt like especially Baldwin and Wiseman, I mean, it was a blowout. It is what it is, but like they felt like, oh, okay, let me let me jack up some shots here. I mean, I'll say about Wiseman, right, for whether you love him or you hate him, it's like this is the whole point of playing him and bringing him up from the G League, is to showcase him before the trade deadline, and see what he can do. Either he's going to be like, oh, this guy can help us, or another team, another GM's gonna be like, oh, this guy could help us. They see a guy who can shoot, a guy who can rim run, dunk around the basket, needs work in other areas, but maybe this pumped up his trade value. I obviously, as we've talked about, would prefer to keep him and have him be like that, ideally 9th or 10th guy. 9th is probably hoping for too much, but like just those emergency big man minutes when, like, I don't know, some random 7-footer is giving the Warriors problems, and Looney is in foul trouble or something like that, or Draymond, and you need somebody out there. But it's one thing I noticed. I was like, wow, and I noticed this before, but even truer now, it's like he really is a lot better against dudes who are smaller than him, because he got worked by the Knicks, because the Knicks are pretty big and strong and physical, and these guys are just like, like, okay, go ahead, dunk it.
Well, the Nets that's one of their biggest issues going through the East, is they don't have a lot of size. I mean, for Wiseman, I don't think any of these games is going to convince the people who don't see it in him that he's going to turn it around, and that's because his issues are still apparent. He sometimes has problems catching the ball, and that's an issue. But part of it is who he's out there with, right? He's out there with these with the kids. There's no space, there's no gravity. They're trying to run the Warrior system, but without without people who make the Warrior system work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how much of a chance does he have really to look that good?
Mm-hmm.
I'd also say though, I mean, this might be just, really squinting to find the silver lining. I do think that he's shown some growth on the defensive end, and some of his approach to the drop coverage, those kinds of things, shading players. Like, he's digesting the scouting report, he's playing to what the coaches are telling him what to do. So it shows some like growth. It shows the some coachability, which maybe in a couple of years he's a solid rotation guy, right? And he's huge out there, and you can see like he can get easy buckets, right? Like if you have some players who can get him the ball, which Ty Jerome never does. Sorry,
Ty Jerome had 7 assists.
And one of them was to James Wiseman. But then maybe there's a chance that another team sees that and says like, well, we can make it work with this guy. So what can he get for the Warriors? I personally, just going back to the ranting opportunity, I guess I'm not, being able to see him play in these last few games, I don't know that I'm seeing a good fit with this team. I don't think, and it's more about timing, that he's not going to be ready to contribute in time, I don't think. And we can say, oh, by April, but I just think that if they're quote unquote chasing wins, he's not going to play. He's only going to play in these kinds of opportunities, and so it's just not aligning. So what can he get? What can he get to help a team? Is there anybody out there who's going to be able to be plugged in and be that 8th or 9th like solid rotation player? I mean, it seems like he really should be able to fetch something like that. And I'm at the point where I've seen enough of these kids that I don't want another first round pick. So if I don't think we have this, I think we do have this year's first round pick. So can we trade it, or is there future picks? Like, I don't care. I think, and I know Rollins is a second round pick, but man, he's not ready. I don't know if he'll ever be. And it's a post loss rant. So he's just sucking up a roster spot. So I'm a little bit frustrated by that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Rollins. I don't think he's going to be ready anytime soon. I've had people say that they think he could help in the springtime, and I'm like, he's not going to be ready from what I've seen, and he just doesn't know how to play in the NBA. He's not there, and I don't think Kerr would ever play him, especially. But I mean, you'll see Ty Jerome for so much more. With Wiseman, is like I've talked about. Oh, the playoffs are 4 months away, less than 4 months away now. But like, that's the start of the playoffs. I understand that too, right? It's like April 15th. Play-in is before that too, so you have even less time if we're looking at the play-in. So it really depends again on how like these weeks go. It's so funny to go back and forth. Like like I'm inherently a Wiseman guy, but then these ups and downs, and then like you said, everybody who dislikes him already is going to just look at all the negatives. They're not going to look at, like I said this after the Knicks game, that Rollins and PBJ were not helpful at all to Wiseman in the fourth quarter against the Knicks. But let me ask you this about Wiseman. People have tossed this idea out to me that, do you think he's actually more of like a forward, like a power forward or something?
I think that's who he wants to be, and he's trying to be
like AD, right? He doesn't want to play center.
No, and he's trying to be the center. He's trying to be a Warrior center, and bless him for trying. But that's just also not him. But the Warriors are also not going to bend to that. They're not going to give him the opportunities to spread his wings and try things. They
Hmm.
don't even let Kuminga do that, really, right? Who I
Yeah.
think who's way more ready.
Hmm.
So I that just leads me to think that it's not a good fit.
So where do you stand as of now? Because earlier in the season, you were telling me you wanted to trade him for Jakob Pertl, which it was a name that was popular for a
Mm-hmm.
while. It's kind of faded a little bit, but I'm sure it will come up again. Where do you stand? Because you're kind of falling into that area where it's like you think he could be good, but he might not be a good enough fit in time, which is a perfectly practical stance to take. It's like not like, oh, we made a mistake, but it's like, hey, this didn't work out largely because he had such a star-crossed career for like 3 years going back to college. So as of now, where do you fall on that? And who would you want to see him like moved for?
Yeah, I don't. I think the Pirtle thing was just like, oh, hey, their salaries match perfectly, right? You go on
Right.
Spoke Track or whatever the trade machines, and you're like, hey, but that I don't think that is really a viable player. I mean, a good player and one that would fit the Warriors, but it's probably not enough minutes with him and Looney, and then Draymond playing the center too. So I don't know. You know, you're thinking, some other names were like PJ Washington. That could be interesting. Somebody in that 3-4-5 role that could be interesting. But the other thing too, let me throw this back at you, is part of me feels like, yes, the Warriors made that D'Angelo Wiggins trade mid-season a few years ago, and you had a sense that that was kind of like cooking once when they signed D'Angelo in the first place, or signed and traded him. But part of me wonders, is this a bigger thing? Because what if they wait until the offseason to trade him, ride this out, sign some fringe rotation guys, buyout guys, like, looking at Markieff Morris hit some threes. I'm like, oh, somebody like that, right? To fill out that roster. They pay less in the tax, and then they go to the offseason, which a lot of people have circled as like a pivotal one just anyway, and one that may be kind of has some seismic movements. But maybe that's a time where you do have more opportunities to package Wiseman with that's when Poole's extension goes up, right?
Hmm.
That gives you the salary cap uh ballast to balance getting somebody who's paid more. um
Hmm.
and I only bring that up because Poole looks good in these games where he is the lead ball handler, but he doesn't look so good when he's coming off the bench, right?
Right.
And so maybe that's something that happens in the off season.
Hmm.
Again, I don't know the names, but off season trades are easier to make at that
Right.
point. I just don't know if the midseason trade is going to be worth it. But again, then you're stuck with this highly flawed roster. Um,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
The thing about trading Wiseman uh, mid-season by the deadline, it's like you're going to be trading low, right? Selling
Mm-hmm.
low, and that's a thing that always, like, I know they don't want to do, right? Especially if he's showing some signs, maybe not enough to satisfy anti-Wiseman fans or even their own vets, but I can't really see that. I mean, who would you rather move? Actually, let me ask you this: what position do you think the Warriors need to fill the most? You kind of asked me this recently, and I talked about center, but like, after looking at this roster, right? So I talked about how I think 1 through 8 is looking good with Kuminga in the eighth spot in the rotation. And so, you know, getting a vet, uh, are you looking for someone who's more of like a wing, like a Caruso, or are you looking for more of a big man, whether it's a Pirtle and Olynyk or whomever else you can imagine, you know?
I mean, this might sound stupid, but because kind of already have a guy, but I think it's like a scoring guard who can play better defense than Poole, right?
Wow. Wow.
When because I want to see Clay get back to even, late last season Clay or playoff Clay. Is it going to happen though? 32.
I don't
Um,
know.
the atrophy that happened over the summer, and he pushed so hard for 2.5 years to get to what he could do last season and in the playoffs, and that was great. But is he falling off? Right? He's having consistency issues consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So when Poole fills in for him, he's really great, but he's also he's not great defensively. So is there
Yeah.
somebody that can fill that role, that kind of that 1, 2, 3 guy, and then you package Poole? I mean, if they, it's kind of
Mid-season?
it's no in the off
Uh,
season. It's a dumb question because it's like, well, if that guy existed, then how would you get him, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
But I'm talking like this season, you know what I mean? Because off season, there's a whole nother like
yeah,
because we have to
yeah.
see how this team rises or flames out, how they reach or fall short of expectations. So that's a really like there's a lot of variables for that, and there's variables here. But uh, do you like just now?
I mean, during this game, they need some toughness. They need somebody who is wingy. Um, but I don't like Jay Crowder, but somebody like that I think could help, right? Like the
Yeah.
kind of winning plays guy, you know,
Would you
who
give
can.
up? Would you give up um, either Kuminga or Wiseman or Moody? Which of those three would you be willing to give up? Like, assuming it was like one of them.
I just want to keep Kuminga. I
Yeah.
really think he has the highest ceiling. Seeing him in some of those games, I guess a couple weeks ago, it's like, man, this is the guy who can really fit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that needs to be given some more space to explore things. The other guys are probably going to be role players at best. So unless I'm getting like a star or like a second tier, like really solid, I'm not necessarily maybe a fringy all-star guy. Like I kind of don't want to trade Kuminga because I think that he could be that.
Yeah, and I've said like he's already in their core. You know, he's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
foundational six. By the time the season ends, he'll be in the seven. You know, and yeah, just as a side note, I saw some criticism of Kuminga after the Knicks game, saying like he's only good when he's surrounded by like better players, and I was like, huh? What?
Aren't we all?
But I mean that's true for everyone, and that's true for Kuminga. But like the whole point about Kuminga's ascension this year is the fact that he realized that he needs to play within the context of what the Warriors are doing in their systems, and how all the stuff that he was doing in summer league and preseason on ball, trying to shake and bake people off the dribble, that is not his strength yet. He can get there, but like, when you throw him in with a couple guys he's never really played with, is
Hmm.
PBJ and Rollins, and I'm like, oh man, seeing Kuminga pass the ball, inbound the ball to Rollins, I was like, no, throw it back to Kuminga. Throw
I
it back
know,
to
I
Kuminga.
know. God
He's
damn
learned
it,
not
Ty
to shoot.
Jerome. Let's come on. Give the ball up, please.
So that's just an offhand thing. But would you rather give up Moody or Wiseman at this point? Who do you think has more value in terms of like helpful to the Warriors sooner rather than later?
In terms of keeping or in terms of trade value?
Keeping. Who would you rather
Oh,
keep?
Well, right now, I think it's Moody. I think if he gets a little bit more, I think his trigger is off right now. He just has like a weird timing. It's like sometimes you're like shoot it, and then he doesn't, and then other times you're like, why are you shooting? So, but I think that will come with time, right? And just getting more in
Hmm.
the flow of playing, maybe a semi regular rotation that he's in. Because the guy, I feel like his shot has gotten better,
Hmm.
and he could. And by April 15th or play in April, he could be a reliable guy coming off the bench and making shots for
Yeah.
15 minutes. I 20 minutes. I really think he could be. I'm not confident that Wiseman could play 15 minutes in a game you need to win. I mean, we've seen Moody do that. We saw him do it last
Right.
playoffs, right? So,
Right.
um, I that's in him. We've seen it.
And which is crazy to me why he cannot crack the rotation. Like that's
I
like
know.
every
I
time I'm
know.
like, oh yeah, Moody's slow footed and he can't, like maybe he was being a little too, he's not accepting his role. He thinks he can be more than 3 and D. And it's like, oh, but he played his role well and he was able to do that. Why can't he just bring that to whatever
Hmm.
it is going on? I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing about Wiseman. I don't know what you think about this, but sometimes when I watch him, I see that 33 on his back. And I get some weird, they're different heights, but I get some weird, like, Antwan Jamison vibes in terms of
Mm,
like the way he carries, and kind of Joe Smith too. And that's the thing you're talking about how the Warriors need a little bit more edge to them outside of
yeah.
Draymond, because Poole talks, but he's not. You don't think of him as tough, and especially since he crumpled in that video of getting punched, right? Like that kind of lingers. But you know, Joe Smith and Antoine Jameson were like good dudes. You know what I mean? After the
Yeah.
Chris Webber things, like let's draft some good dudes.
Yeah.
Throw in Todd Fuller for fun. Sometimes I get that from Wiseman, and having when you mention the Morrises, it's just like, oh man, uh, I'm surprised neither of them ever played for the Warriors before. I feel like they kind of should at some point, but probably not anytime soon. But uh, when I look at Wiseman, you texted me like you just wish his motor was on all the
Hmm.
time because he seemed too chill in this game, in this Nets game, like that. He was just kind of coasting at a certain point. I thought he was gassed because at a certain point in the
Yeah.
second quarter, he was,
He was.
while during a live ball, he was like bent over, like pulling at his shorts. So, I mean, what's your thought on that, just in general, about him being like too? And we've talked about over the years him not having enough dog in him.
Yeah. I think it's something that is not completely his fault in that he's so big, he sticks out, and especially fans and people who are not big men always see big men and wonder why don't you do this or why don't you do that. So I do also agree that I think the physicality, NBA physicality, like was he was gassed. He was totally gassed. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what people who don't like him. I think that's what annoys them, and it annoys me. I like him, but it's just like it is like all of those things. It's kind of like go get after that, like why aren't you trying for that rebound?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, like just he's not like a relentless dude, like he's not gonna go hey, he's not Isaiah Stewart, right?
Right. Our
sorry,
guy.
I always
Yeah.
bring him up. He's my guy. He's not that guy that is just running down everything, um, causing mayhem, right? And just imagine if he was. And I
Hmm.
just like I don't quite get that. And is it a mentality thing, or is that just his personality? Is he plain scared? Like I don't think so. But it all makes him look like he's like, I don't mean slow like as in not smart, but just like he's not like twitchy like that. He's not wired like that. And that
Yeah.
that feels like a concern. I mean, again, these are things that can be worked on over time, and his awareness would come with playing more, but it's like we don't have time. Like I think Hollinger in his article mentioned that like most trades don't really get start talking about until MLK games.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so that's mid-January, and you think, another month of, talking trades, it's not that much time to integrate somebody new into your system, right?
Right.
So like there's not that much time. I think they need to make a decision of what they're going to do with this guy, right? Like and all to mix it in too, like, remember during the Celtics game there was the Woj um moment about Bob Myers doesn't have a contract. Like, are there some owner management issues happening in terms of like roster construction, keeping certain players over others? Like, I have no information. I have not read anything about that, um but again, just thinking about the Giants and, like what happened there, right?
Yeah.
But management and ownership, like they, the Lakers are very involved in, plural Lakers are very involved in the roster construction, and they have their favorites, and clearly Kerr doesn't share those same opinions
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because of the people he plays.
I mean, the thing about Bob Myers, I think I addressed that. In my opinion, just an opinion, was like, I don't think anything of it. I mean, there could be something there. Who knows? He wasn't reporting anything except a fact. And, I think I said uh, on that episode that the only thing I can think of that would pull Myers away is if the Lakers fire Rob Pelinka and want to hire him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, Rob
just
Pelinka
because
just
of
got
that.
that extension, right? So, and
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I got no real new thoughts on that. And these are the things that, uh, I'm not even going to worry about that for like a long, long time, because again, that depends on how this season plays out. Like,
yeah, yeah.
does it all depend on what he does at the trade deadline or who he convinces to come to the Warriors and on the buyout market, you know? But, we'll see. And, you know, looking at this game, it's funny because I feel like you go on Twitter and it's just obviously people just shout out to everybody who was on Twitter for this early game, uh, like tweeting about this game when the Warriors got down by 40. I was like, who's still here? And there are a ton of people there. But, the thing about this is like after Steph got hurt, it's like we know they're going to lose a ton of games. It's not
Yeah.
fun in the moment, but this is what I expected. I expected losses, maybe not by 40 or whatever, 30. Uh, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for effort and showing and seeing people progress. And those are minor things. Those are things of like a losing team from the 90s. Like, oh, maybe Donna Foyle can learn how to shoot a free throw or something. He hit one. And again, like whether it's ultimately to move Wiseman or somehow make him. I moved him back in the rotation every time I think about it. Like I went from like maybe ninth. Okay, how about 10th? Okay, 11th. Right? Emergency enough to keep him, and then like let him maybe grow and flourish a little bit longer. I don't know. Obviously, like I want to see if he can stick. I would prefer personally, like, hey, move Moody if you had to move somebody out of the 3 lotto picks, because there's other people who are kind of in front of him. Although Moody might be more useful in the playoffs, but uh, find another, center. Move Moody and JaMychal Green in a pick. That's something that was tossed out to me on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, okay, if you could find like a fringe guy, or like not even fringe, but like a backup center to come in a pinch, and then and then you end up with Wiseman as like your emergency center. Right? But in this one, it's like just everybody is so mad that this is what the Warriors are. But like, come on, like this is the Warriors team without Steph, without Wiggins, without Clay, for better or for worse. and without DiVincenzo. So 4 of their top 7 guys,
JaMychal Green.
yeah, well, that guy's like 9th. Yeah, but still, right? Like 5 of their top 9, like that's no good. And it's, again, you have to look at the other things that are going to get you further down the road to make those decisions, whether it's at the trade deadline or buyout or something like that. So the funny thing was like Clay, I talked to you about who's more frustrating, Clay or Poole, because those are the 2 most important guys right now with Wiggins and Steph out, and they're the 2 most inconsistent guys this season.
Mm-hmm.
And Clay sat in this one, so like my ire at Jordan Poole was like,
you only got one left,
pretty high. And I was like, it's you, buddy. And like every time the ball bounced off of his hands, and every time he tripled, and like, everybody says slow down. It's like, yeah, slow down, man, slow down. And he does the herky jerky stuff, and sometimes the defender just doesn't move. So I hope that somehow he figures out how to develop his game and like take it, because when he misses, man, he misses bad. Right? Like he misses bad. Like there was one where a Nets player in the second half fell over. I don't know if it was because of a move, because he slipped, because he tripped.
Yeah.
And it's like Poole took his time and shot it, missed it, did not come up short, did not go long, went left and long.
Yeah, it was wide. It was
like
wide and long.
It was a thud, man. It was like a thud.
That was a brick. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was not one of my favorite Jordan Poole moments, and it's also kind of one of those things too. I'm picking on Jordan Poole now, so just bear with. It's the holiday spirit. So it's like when he does something like that, and he just looks mad at the ref. Right? Yeah. It's like the ref made him like not catch that pass or dribble off of his foot or something, and it's the equivalent of playing pickup, and you pass the ball to somebody who doesn't have good hands, and like they like look at their hands when they miss it, like, as if looking at their hands. It's like, that's what
stupid hands.
Yeah.
Well, I'm disappointed that mutton chop luck it doesn't seem to be working, and but kind of in the like you were saying, Christmas spirit, and also mutton chops, like you're thinking about your Charles Dickens era stuff. I wanted to ask you, do you have a Warriors Christmas wish? And not like, it has to be realistic. Like, sure, like think about like, something you want for Warriors Christmas, not the draft, actual Christmas. For the rest of the season or something, not something unrealistic, like, we get Magic Johnson goes in a time machine and I don't know. Wilt Chamberlain walks through that door, right? It has to be something realistic.
It's funny because like there's so many like little things. I'm just so in the weeds on all this stuff, all this Warriors stuff, that like honestly the first and only thing I can think of is that Wiggins comes back and he doesn't miss a beat. I do worry that this stretch that he's been gone for, like it seems like he was like rolling on so much momentum, and his shooting percentage is like across the board except for free throw. They were like career highs so far, and I do have concerns that when he comes back he's going to be rusty, which is normal, but that he never gets back to like that level. And that is my Christmas wish, bottom line. Like I want to see him back on Christmas, and I want to see him at least for the so show us something. I don't want him going like 3 for 12. I would love to see him go like 4 for 8, depending on how many minutes he gets. If he gets his regular rotation minutes, like like a 8 for 13 would be awesome.
It's an underrated point that most of us are not talking about, and that this season he's been their second best player for sure, and that he's missed a whole bunch of games now, right? So that's a huge thing, and probably way underrated in terms of All-Star Wiggins would be nice. Christmas wish for me, well, specifically the Christmas Day game against Memphis, it better not be this Nets like a score like this. Like it's got to be competitive because the Grizzlies are coming for the Warriors. I'm hoping at least they have some focus that they had in that Celtics game, and that Clay, Wiggins, Poole, that they all show up. Draymond will always be up for that. I'll always remember that terrible year where Steph broke his hand and Draymond was the only one standing, and they went out and they beat the James Harden Rockets anyway on Christmas, and so I know he'll bring it on Christmas. I guess my Christmas wish would just be like, and a realistic one would just to be get somebody to help stabilize that kind of second unit, round out the rotation, because I think there's so much instability right now, and it ain't it if it's Ty Jerome and they signed Ty Jerome for the rest of the season. It's like, no, that's not it.
No,
it's gotta be somebody else, and I don't know who's walking through that door. But that's
David West is not walking through that door. Sean Livingston might walk through the door, but he's wearing a suit.
Any of those dudes, right? Like somebody like that. Like, please, they need that kind of help. So, again, I don't know who that's gonna be, but that's my realistic Christmas wish. Those two.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair, man. And I hope you get your wish.
I hope so too.
All right. Thank you for being on the show, man. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
And y'all can find Aram on Twitter at Aram Collier, ARAMCOLLIER.